Hello, and welcome to another edition of Jewish Museum Milwaukee's Museum Moments. I'm Molly Dubin, the curator with the Jewish Museum Milwaukee, and it's great to be with you today. So this week we are exploring the themes a little bit of the diaspora, and we've so labeled that because this week's Museum Moments are looking at Jewish communities around the world. We have another one coming up on Thursday. And also tomorrow, we have a conversation starter coming out with the head consul of the Consulate of Mexico here in Milwaukee, Juliana Dem. So we're very excited about that. But today, we are going to be looking at a snapshot of Jews of Argentina. So as many of you may remember, we did an exhibit about this several years ago. And we do have a number of families in the Milwaukee community that come from Argentina or have Argentinian background. And they were wonderful in helping us to organize the exhibit and contribute materials. For those of you who remember it or know a little bit about the Jews of Argentina, you also know that it's a very complex history, the situation with the Jewish population there. So due to that complexity and really the fact that we have just a few moments to explore this topic, we are going to be looking at really the beginnings of Jewish presence in Argentina, the beginnings of community there, kind of just right up to before World War II, when things start to change significantly, and that will be a museum moment for another occasion. So with that, I'm going to share my screen, and we will get going on our journey here. Okay, we're going to start the slideshow from the beginning. Okay, and there we have the beautiful Argentinian flag. Makes you long for water and sun. At least it makes me long for that. So just to give you an idea, I'm sure many of you are familiar with South America and the countries and how they're laid out, but this is just to give you an idea. And Argentina, of course, is circled in the lower portion there. It is a large country and has a long, rich, and complex history, as I said. So we are going to start with really looking at the earliest establishments. But just to kind of preface that a little bit, I wanted to, say that the Jewish presence in Argentina, the earliest presence, really dates back to the Spanish colonial era. In the 16th century. And the Jews that fled Spain due to persecution, due to the Spanish Inquisition, fled to Argentina. And that was really just a small group. And of course, they were also fleeing to escape pogroms. There were also Russian Jews who were fleeing to the area. The ones that were coming from Spain were often known as conversos, or secret Jews. The reason being is that during the Inquisition, many were forced to convert or outwardly convert and then hide the practice of their Judaism. So conversos is a term that you may have come across. And then really once Spain, once there was a separation from Spain, once Argentina separated and gained independence from Spain, which happened in 1816, that was when really organized communities started to pop up. And the first really, sizable wave of immigrants was a group of approximately 824 Russian Jews that came to Argentina on the SS Vesser, and this actually are a couple of stamps showing that ship. It was a ship that was owned by North German Lloyd and was renamed a couple of different titles later on. But this is the SS Vesser that came into the Port of Buenos Aires. And here you can see some of the early immigrants having unloaded a number of their belongings, trying to get organized. As you can imagine, the culture shock and also the environmental shock as far as coming into this very new country, the climate. And many of these early immigrants were coming and wound up settling agricultural colonies. So as I mentioned, August 1889 was when this group came. And this is an image of early colonists, Jewish colonists here, the family of Samuel Tesler and Simei Shohet. So these are, of course, images that I think are somewhat recognizable for those of us who have family albums, families from, Eastern Europe, Russia. These are familiar portraits, and here they are just in a very new landscape. So the first colony that was formed, the first agricultural colony that was formed, was the colony of Moisesville. As you can probably surmise, that basically translates as the town of Moses. And you can get a feel for the land here. So they were farming. This was very, very hard work. Many of them not only were becoming familiar with agriculture that they learned, from some of the native population, but also becoming familiar with cattle and horses. And that became a big kind of a way of survival, a profession among the Jewish colonists. And these individuals were known as gauchos. So these were basically Jewish Argentinian cowboys. And from the research that I did on the exhibit that we did in the past, we know that they carried some very serious equipment, not only to do their trade, but also to scare away any would-be cattle stealers from their herds. So Moisesville kind of ran into some financial straits, as you can imagine. These are immigrants who, came with what they had, but not a lot. They were fleeing persecution, fleeing, poor economies often. And so there was some outreach to a well-known philanthropist, Baron Maurice de Hirsch. Now, Maurice de Hirsch was the son of a gentleman who was the first Jewish landowner of Bavaria, so incredibly wealthy. And he really was very much about doing philanthropic work for the Jewish community, kind of trying to help with the persecution that was going on. And in particular, he had a plan to work on kind of mass immigration and to assist with mass immigration from Eastern Europe and Russia to Argentina. And the idea is that these colonists would then be given land or leased land that they would then settle agriculturally. Baron Maurice de Hirsch and his wife had 2 children. His son died fairly early. I believe he was 31 years old. And this was a big blow for Hirsch. And he, from this point on, even further dedicated himself to helping the Jewish plight. And this is when the Jewish Colonization Association was established. So here is a map you can see on the left there, and there were a number of colonies that were developed under the JCA. And of course, along with this establishment came the need to establish all the fundamentals that a Jewish community would need, and we'll look at that in a second here. But he was very much all about helping to build the industry. Here's a shot of a number of individuals, I'm sure, that worked in kind of community positions, but also workers. And you can see at the top there, Sociedad Coop Agricola, Baron Hirsch, and the year there at the top, 1910. So really, really did a great deal for the community there. And at one point, they owned a huge parcel of, a number of parcels of land, and really did grow the community quite extensively. As I mentioned earlier, they set up all the fundamentals that you would need to have a successful community. This is an early shot of a JCA school. There's the students and teachers there. Of course, a synagogue was established. That's one of the first things that would have been erected. And these are some of the very early immigrants praying and attending the first synagogue. There was quite a bit of music. We all, there was theater. The Kadima Theater was there, but here we have a great musical group. We know that there were sports, soccer, which fits very much so with the idea of we have of South America and Argentina today. And this is the last image I have. As I said, just wanted to kind of get us up to right before World War II, the beginnings of World War II. And this is a celebration of Purim in 1930, which felt kind of fitting. Purim is a time for kind of dressing up and escaping, and that is something I feel like a lot of us maybe need right now. But just to give you a little bit of an idea of the population in Argentina. So currently, the population is approximately 180,500, and that is actually significantly down from its height, the height of the Jewish population in the early 1960s, which was 310,000. This happened, and for those of you who know a little the latter history, there were some major coups and aggravation heading into the 1970s with the military junta, and that wound up seeing a huge number of the Jewish population fleeing. However, presently, it is the largest Jewish population in South America, and it is, outside of Israel, the 7th largest Jewish population in the world. So an incredibly long, as I said, rich, diverse history. Primarily, the populations are settled in Buenos Aires and Cordoba, and that really started happening early on from the settlements, the agricultural settlements, as more opportunities began early on when they arrived and the JCA was established. There was certainly help from immigrants, and they were able to become traders and shop owners and farmers, but they weren't allowed to hold any type of political position. So this began to shift a little bit, but as more kind of opportunities became up in terms of industry, population started moving to more of the urban centers of Buenos Aires. And as I said, the population has kind of fluctuated. the time of the time of Baron de Hirsch really coincides with a time, as I said, prior to World War II, where Jews were really drawn to Argentina because of being able to escape persecution. It was also a safe haven because of the open door immigration policy. And it was not only good for the Jewish community to be able to come and settle and have a safe place, but it was good for the Argentinian government to have this population there really settling these agricultural territories and making them very productive. And that open door immigration policy really stayed in place up until approximately 1938, when, of course, the Third Reich comes to power and the persecution of Jews starts to ramp up in Europe as we start looking into heading into World War II. And then immigration policies change hugely. But the culture that is Jewish Argentina is incredibly diverse, as I said, incredibly rich. When you think about the food, the dance, the art, but certainly these very early immigrants as well that really were part of the foundation and the establishment of what we see today as the contemporary country of Argentina. So, as I said, that is really just a snapshot. It's a long history, and we will maybe be able to revisit it at another museum moment. But if you're interested, we certainly have information on our website on our previous exhibits, including the Jews of Argentina. And I encourage you to explore because it truly is fascinating. With that, I'd like to thank you for being with us for today's museum moment. I encourage you to go to our website to see what we have going on, and that's jewishmuseummilwaukee.org. Got great things coming up, as we always do, and we'll hope to see you at another museum moment, conversation starter, virtual program, or all of the above. Thanks so much and have a great rest of the day.